Wido uses drone to see her house and can't believe what she finds. Jennifer Morgan looked at the sky heavy with clouds while holding the remote control with trembling hands. At 38, she was raising 4 young children alone on a rural property she had inherited from her husband 2 years ago. The last storm had been violent, and she desperately needed to assess the damage to the roofs and the more distant parts of the land. That's when she decided to use the drone her neighbor Bradley had lent her. She never imagined that small flying device would reveal a secret that would change her life forever. Directing the camera toward the back of the property, Jennifer saw something that made her heart race. There, right in front of the old caretaker's house she believed had been abandoned for years, were clothes hanging on a clothesline. "Mom, what is it?" asked Nathan, her eldest son of 8 years, noticing the frightened expression on his mother's face. Jennifer quickly turned off the drone and landed it on the packed dirt ground. Her other 3 children, 6-year-old Emily, 4-year-old Tyler, and little Lily, just 2, were playing with twigs near the wooden porch of the main house. The wind swayed the floral scarf she always wore to protect her hair from the strong inland sun. "It's nothing, son," she lied, trying to keep her voice calm while her heart beat irregularly. But it wasn't nothing. Someone was living on her property without her knowledge. Someone had settled in the caretaker's house she considered uninhabitable. The rusty zinc roof, the peeling walls, the door she herself had padlocked 2 years ago when she arrived to live there with the children. Jennifer looked at the children who depended entirely on her. Since her husband Michael had passed in a tractor accident, she fought every day to keep the family together and the property running. She sold eggs in town, tended a small vegetable garden, and raised a few chickens. Every penny was counted. Every decision weighed on her shoulders. The thought that strangers could be so close to her children made her feel a chill in her stomach. She had always been a distrustful woman by nature, especially after everything she had been through. Michael used to say she saw danger where there was none, but now her intuition screamed that something was very wrong. "Nathan, take your siblings inside," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm going to take a look at the back of the property." "Can I go with you, Mom?" asked the boy, always protective of the family. "No, sweetheart. Stay here and look after your siblings. I won't be long." Jennifer walked toward the back of the property with determined steps, but a heavy heart. The land was large, an inheritance from Michael's family, with more than 5 hectares of good soil. The main house was at the front, near the dirt road that led to town. The caretaker's house was in the back, hidden by some fruit trees and a small grove. She knew every corner of that land. When Michael was alive, they had made plans to renovate the caretaker's house and turn it into a country inn. Dreams that shattered along with his life when the tractor overturned on that fateful September morning. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. As she approached the building, Jennifer could clearly see that someone had fixed the broken windows. There was an improvised curtain made of colorful fabric, and the padlock she herself had put on the door was no longer there. Her breathing grew heavier, and she felt her hands sweat. She decided to hide behind a mango tree to get a better look. That's when she saw an elderly woman come out of the house, carrying a basin of dirty water. The woman had grey hair tied in a simple bun and wore a faded blue dress. She appeared to be between 60 and 65 years old, and her movements were careful, like someone suffering from joint pain. Jennifer's heart beat even faster. Who was that woman? How had she gotten there? What if there were more people? What if they were dangerous? She was deciding whether to go back home and call for help or confront the situation when she heard voices coming from inside the house. Several people were talking in low tones. An older male voice, the voice of the woman she had seen, and other younger voices. Jennifer took a deep breath. She had faced worse things in the last 2 years, raising 4 children alone, keeping a property running, dealing with the debts Michael had left behind. She wasn't going to be intimidated by some trespassers on her own land. She stepped out from behind the tree and walked determinedly to the front door of the house. She knocked 3 times firmly. "Is anyone there?" she shouted, making her voice sound more confident than she felt. The silence that followed was deafening. She could hear hurried whispers coming from inside the house, as if the people were deciding what to do. "I know you're in there," she continued. "This is my property, and I demand to know who you are and what you're doing here." Finally, the door opened slowly. The elderly woman she had seen appeared in the doorway, her face marked by fear and surprise. For a few seconds they stared at each other in silence. "You are—" the elderly woman began in a trembling voice. "I'm Jennifer, the owner of this property," she said, crossing her arms. "And who are you?" The elderly woman seemed to grow even paler. She looked back, as if asking for help, and then an elderly man appeared as well, with completely white hair and an unshaven beard. When he saw Jennifer, his face contorted into an expression of deep shock. "Michael," he murmured, and Jennifer saw tears forming in his eyes. "How do you know my husband?" she asked, feeling a chill run down her spine. The elderly man seemed unable to speak. It was the woman who stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "My child," she said in a choked voice, "we are Michael's parents." Jennifer felt the world spin around her. Michael's parents? But that was impossible. Michael had always told her that his parents had left when he was young and that he'd never had contact with them again, that he had no family besides her and the children. "That's a lie," she whispered, taking a step back. "I know it's hard to believe," said the elderly woman, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her dress, "but I am Margaret Morgan, and this is my husband, William Morgan. Michael was our son." "No, no, no," Jennifer shook her head. "Michael told me you had left, that he had no family." William finally managed to speak, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We fought with him, girl. We fought badly, many years ago, and—" He paused as if the words were painful. "We were very wrong." Jennifer felt as if she were in a bad dream. None of this made sense. How could Michael's parents be there, living on her property, without her knowing? "What fight?" she asked, still trying to process the information. Margaret and William exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable. "It's a long story, my child," said Margaret, "a story that brings great shame to our family." It was then that Jennifer heard other noises coming from inside the house, lighter footsteps, young voices. She craned her neck to try to see who else was there. "How many people are living here?" she asked, her voice growing harder. "Besides the two of us," said William hesitantly, "are our grandsons. 3 boys." "Grandsons?" Jennifer felt her confusion grow even more. "Sons of David, our other son," Margaret explained quickly. "Michael's brother. Jennifer had to lean against the doorframe. Michael had a brother? How was that possible? He had never, ever mentioned having a brother. "I need to sit down," she murmured, feeling her legs go weak. Margaret immediately took her by the arm and led her inside the house. The interior was surprisingly clean and organized. There were simple but well-kept pieces of furniture, curtains on the windows, pots on the wood-burning stove that someone had repaired. 3 boys who looked to be between 12 and 16 years old were sitting in a corner, looking at her with curiosity and apprehension. Jennifer sat on a wooden chair and tried to gather her thoughts. Everything was happening too fast. First, the discovery that someone was living on her property. Then the revelation that they were the in-laws she had never met. And now she found out that Michael had a brother, and she had brothers-in-law she didn't even know existed. "Why did Michael never tell me about you?" she finally asked. Silence fell in the room. Margaret poured a glass of water for Jennifer, who drank it slowly, trying to buy time to process everything. "Because we did terrible things," said William, his voice heavy with remorse. "When Michael brought you to meet us, we weren't kind." "We were prejudiced," Margaret added, tears starting to flow again. "You came from a simple family, had no education, and we thought our Michael deserved someone better." Jennifer felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. She vaguely remembered Michael mentioning that he wanted her to meet people important to him, but that it had never worked out. Now she understood why. "We said horrible things," Margaret continued. "We said you were only with him for his money, that a girl like you wasn't good enough to marry our son." The humiliation Jennifer felt was intense, even so many years later. She had always suspected Michael was hiding something about his family, but she had never imagined it was this. "And what happened after that?" she asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. "Michael was furious with us," said William. "He said if we didn't accept you, he would cut ties with us forever." "And that's what he did," Margaret added, sobbing. "We didn't speak to our son for over 10 years. We didn't even know about our grandchildren until we got the news." Jennifer understood. The news of Michael's passing. They had learned their son was gone and had come looking for the family they helped destroy. "And David? Michael's brother?" The elderly couple's faces grew even darker. "David," William began but stopped, as if he didn't know how to continue. "David had problems," Margaret said diplomatically. "Problems with drinking, with work. His wife left 2 years ago, left the 3 boys with him. He couldn't manage on his own." Jennifer looked at the 3 boys in the corner of the room. The oldest seemed to be about the same age as Nathan, her son. They looked well cared for, clean, but their clothes were clearly patched and old. "Where is he now?" "We don't know," William admitted. "He shows up from time to time, brings a little money when he can find work, but—" He paused. "He's not reliable." Jennifer felt her heart tighten. Those boys were her children's nephews. Children who grew up not knowing they had family nearby. "How long have you been here?" 3 months, said Margaret. "We arrived right after we heard about Michael. We wanted to meet our grandchildren. We wanted to try to make amends somehow." "But why didn't you come to me? Why did you hide?" Margaret and William exchanged glances again. "Because we were afraid," Margaret admitted. "Afraid that you would throw us out. Afraid that you wouldn't want to meet us after what we did to Michael. So we decided to stay here, at least near the children, even if from a distance." "Were you spying on me?" Jennifer felt her indignation rise. "Not spying," said William quickly. "Just observing, seeing if there was a chance for us to get closer. You seem like a wonderful mother. The children are beautiful, well cared for." Jennifer abruptly stood up from the chair. "You have no right," she said, her voice firm. "You have no right to live on my property without permission. You have no right to observe my children without me knowing." "You're right," said Margaret, standing up as well. "We'll leave right now." "Wait." Jennifer stopped at the door. Something didn't make sense. "How did you get into the house? I put the padlock on myself." William seemed embarrassed. Michael always kept a spare key under a specific rock. We knew where because this is where he lived when he was young, before building the main house. Another piece of information Michael had never shared with her. Jennifer was beginning to realize how much she didn't know about her husband's past. "And you fixed everything. The house was in ruins." "I've always been good with my hands," said William with a hint of pride in his voice. "I fixed the roof, the windows, the stove. We only made improvements, nothing that harmed the property." Jennifer looked around again. Indeed, the house was in much better condition than when she had locked it up. The work had been well done, professional even. "I need to go," she finally said. "I need to think about all this." "Jennifer," called Margaret as she was leaving. "We know we have no right to ask for anything, but if there's any chance we could meet our grandchildren—" Jennifer stopped but didn't turn around. "Your grandchildren have names," she said in a hard voice. "Nathan, Emily, Tyler, and Lily, and they deserve to grow up without lies and without secrets like their father did." She left the house with a heavy heart and a confused mind. Everything she thought she knew about her life had been shaken in a single afternoon. She walked back to the house trying to organize her thoughts, but it was impossible. When she reached the porch of the main house, the 4 children were waiting anxiously. "Mom, what happened?" asked Nathan immediately. "You took so long," said Emily, running to hug her leg. Jennifer looked at her children's worried little faces and felt the weight of responsibility. How to explain to such young children that they had grandparents they never knew? How to tell them that their father had kept important family secrets? "Mum, are you crying?" asked Tyler, with his 4-year-old sensitivity. Jennifer hadn't noticed the tears had started to fall. She knelt down and hugged all 4 children at once. Sometimes adults cry when they find out important things, she explained, trying to keep her voice calm. It's not necessarily sadness. What kind of important things? Insisted Nathan. Jennifer took a deep breath. She had always promised herself she would be honest with the children, within what was possible for their age to understand. I found out you have family you don't know, she said carefully. Family? Emily widened the brown eyes she had inherited from her father. Yes, your paternal grandparents. Daddy's parents? Asked Nathan, confused. But Daddy said they didn't exist anymore. Daddy said they had passed away, corrected Jennifer. It's not the same thing. She took the children inside and prepared a simple dinner while explaining the situation as delicately as possible. She told them she had discovered the grandparents were living in the caretaker's house, that they had become estranged from the family many years ago because of a fight, but that they wanted to meet their grandchildren. The children's reactions varied. Nathan asked many questions, always the most inquisitive. Emily got excited about the idea of having real grandparents. Tyler seemed not to fully understand the situation. Lily, only 2 years old, continued playing with her rag doll as if nothing had happened. Are they nice? Asked Emily during dinner. I don't know yet, Jennifer answered honestly. I need to get to know them better. Can we meet them too? Asked Nathan. Maybe. But first I need to be sure it's safe and good for you. That night, after putting the children to sleep, Jennifer sat on the porch looking toward the caretaker's house. A faint light shone through the windows, confirming the people were still there. She thought of Michael, trying to imagine how he felt carrying that burden alone. The hurt with his parents, the troubled brother, the family secrets. She always knew Michael was reserved, but she never imagined he hid so much. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. The next morning, Jennifer woke up determined to have a deeper conversation with Margaret and William. She needed to know the whole truth before making any decision about the future. She left the children playing in the backyard and walked again to the caretaker's house. This time, she knocked on the door more calmly. Margaret answered immediately as if she had been waiting. Good morning, said Jennifer. Can we talk? Of course, my dear. Please come in. The house was even tidier than the day before. The 3 young men were not in the living room. They had probably gone out to give them privacy for the conversation. I want to know everything, said Jennifer, sitting in the same chair as the day before. The whole story, from the beginning. Margaret poured fresh coffee and sat next to her husband. They exchanged a look as if deciding where to start. Michael and David were born right here on this property, began William. My father had bought this land, and we worked in agriculture. We weren't rich, but we lived well. Michael was always a different boy, continued Margaret. Smart, inquisitive. He wanted to study. He wanted to get ahead in life. David was the opposite. He only wanted to play. He didn't like responsibilities. When Michael grew up and started working hard to improve the property, we were proud, said William. He managed to increase production, modernize some things. We started having a better life. And that's when he met you, said Margaret, her voice softening. Where? At the town fair. You were selling sweets with your mother. Jennifer remembered. She must have been about 18 at the time. Her family was truly poor, and she helped her mother by selling brigadeiros and beijinhos to supplement the family income. Michael was enchanted by you from the first day, continued Margaret. He went to the fair every week just to buy sweets and talk. Why were you against it? The silence that followed was heavy. Margaret began to cry softly. Because we were fools, said William, bitterness in his voice. Because we thought we were moving up in life, and that Michael deserved to marry someone who was also moving up. A young lady from a family with land, with education, Margaret added. We were blinded by prejudice. And what exactly did you say to him? Horrible things, admitted Margaret. We said you were interested in his money, that a poor girl would get in the way of his plans, that you two were from different worlds. And what did Michael say? That he loved us? But that he loved you more, said William. And that if we forced him to choose, he would choose you without a second thought. And that's what happened. It was. He told us that either we accepted you or we lost him forever. We thought it was just a phase, that he would change his mind. Margaret wiped away her tears. He didn't. When was the last time you spoke with him? On the day of your wedding, said William softly. Jennifer was surprised. She remembered the simple civil ceremony with only a few people. She didn't remember seeing any older people who could have been Michael's parents. What do you mean? We were there, said Margaret. We stayed outside the church just watching. We saw when you came out married. We saw how happy Michael was. We saw how beautiful and radiant you were. And you didn't approach? We wanted to, admitted William. But Michael saw us from a distance and just shook his head, as if saying we weren't welcome. We understood the message. Jennifer tried to remember that day. Michael had been tense at times, looking toward the street, but she thought he was just nervous about the wedding. And after that? After that, we never saw our son again, said Margaret, sobbing, until we got the news of the accident. How did you find out? Your neighbor, Bradley, knows a cousin of ours in the city. He was the one who told us, Bradley, the same neighbor who had lent the drone. Jennifer made a mental note to talk to him later. And you came here when you found out? Not immediately, said William. We were afraid. We didn't know if you would receive us, if the children would accept us. We decided to first come and observe from a distance. For 3 months. For 3 months, confirmed Margaret. Watching you through the window, watching the children play, trying to gather the courage to approach, Jennifer felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, she understood their position. On the other, she felt anger at how they had treated Michael and, indirectly, herself. And David? Where does he fit into this story? The elderly couple's faces darkened again. David was always the troubled son, said William sadly. He never wanted to work, always looked for the easy way out. When Michael cut ties with us, David got very angry too, added Margaret. He said we had ruined the whole family with our prejudice. But he didn't cut ties with you. No, but it wasn't the same. David started drinking more, working less. He married a good woman, but the marriage didn't work out because of his problems. And the children? Brandon, Connor, and Logan, said Margaret, a sad smile appearing on her face. Good boys, but they suffered a lot because of their father. Did their mother really abandon them? She didn't abandon them, corrected William. She tried to take the boys with her, but David wouldn't allow it. After she left, he realized he couldn't manage alone. And he brought them to you. He did. Said he was going to sort his life out and would come back for them. That was 8 months ago. Jennifer absorbed all the information. Those 3 boys she saw in the house were her nephews, sons of a brother-in-law she didn't even know existed, raised by their grandparents in a situation of abandonment. Can I get to know them better? Of course, said Margaret, perking up. Brandon, Connor, Logan. The 3 boys appeared quickly, as if they had been waiting just outside the house. The oldest approached first. Brandon, 16 years old, he introduced himself, extending his hand to Jennifer. Connor, 14, said the second. Logan, 12, completed the youngest, with a shy smile. Jennifer observed the 3. They had features that reminded her of Michael, especially Brandon. They were polite, well-spoken, but their clothes were clearly old and patched. Do you know who I am? Aunt Jennifer, said Brandon. Our grandparents told us about you and about our cousins. What else did they tell you? That our Uncle Michael was a very good man, said Connor, and that they messed up and lost the chance to know him better. And that you are an amazing mother, completed Logan, because you take care of the 4 kids alone and keep the property running. Jennifer felt her heart soften. The boys seemed genuinely polite and affectionate. Would you like to meet your cousins? The 3 looked at each other excitedly. Very much, said Brandon, but only if you allow it, ma'am. And if our cousins want to, added Connor wisely. We'll see, said Jennifer, but first I need to sort out some matters with your grandparents. The boys understood the cue and went outside again. Jennifer turned to Margaret and William. About your situation of living here, this can't continue without a clear definition. We understand, said William, if you want us to leave. That's not it, interrupted Jennifer. But I need to know if there's any document that guarantees your rights to this property." Margaret and William looked at each other nervously. "Why do you ask that?" said Margaret. "Because I need to know the whole truth. Michael left this property to me and the children in the will, but I want to be sure there are no other legal matters involved." "Jennifer," said William slowly, "there's something you should perhaps know." Jennifer's heart raced. Whenever someone started a sentence like that, the news wasn't good. "Michael," William paused as if the words were difficult. "Michael made a second will, a few weeks before he passed." Jennifer felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "What do you mean, a second will?" "He left the caretaker's house for us," said Margaret quickly. "Just the caretaker's house, nothing else." "That's impossible," murmured Jennifer. "I saw the will. The lawyer showed me everything." "It was done with another lawyer," explained William, "in the neighboring town. Michael said that if we ever returned, we should look for that document." Jennifer stood up from the chair, feeling her legs go weak again. "Do you have this document?" "No," admitted Margaret. "But we know the lawyer's name, Dr. Harrison, in St. Clair." St. Clair was the neighboring town, about 25 miles away. Jennifer had never heard of that lawyer, but that didn't mean the document didn't exist. "Why would Michael do that?" she asked, more to herself than to them. "Because deep down he hoped we would return," said Margaret with tears in her eyes. "Because despite everything, he still loved us and wanted to give us a chance to make peace." Jennifer needed to get out of there. She needed to think. She needed to verify this information about the will. If it were true, it would completely change the legal situation of the property. "I will verify this information," she said, heading for the door. "Jennifer," called Margaret, "regardless of what you find out, we just want a chance to get to know our grandchildren. If you decide it's not good for them, we'll respect that. And if I decide it is good, then we'll be the most grateful and loving grandparents those children could have," said William with emotion in his voice. Jennifer left the house with her head spinning. Every conversation with her in-laws revealed new secrets about Michael. How had he managed to hide so much from her? And why hadn't he told her about the second will? She returned home determined to go to St. Clair to investigate the matter of the document. But first she needed to arrange for someone to stay with the children. She thought of asking her neighbor, Mrs. Rosemary, to look after them, but decided to talk to Bradley first about how her in-laws had discovered the location of the property. Bradley lived on the neighboring farm, a man of about 50 who had always been helpful to her after Michael's passing. He was the one who helped her in the first months, teaching her how to care for the vegetable garden and the chickens. "Bradley," she called, knocking on his door. "Jennifer, good to see you. How are the children?" "They're fine." "Bradley, I need to ask you a question. Do you know some cousins of the Morgans?" Bradley's face turned slightly red. "Why do you ask?" "Because I found out that Michael's parents are living on my property, and they said they learned about the accident through a cousin of yours." Bradley sighed heavily. "It's true, Jennifer. My cousin Oscar knew the Morgan family from town. When he heard what happened to Michael, he thought his parents should know." "And did you know they were here?" Bradley hesitated before answering. "I suspected. I saw smoke coming from the farmhand's house chimney a few times, but I thought you knew." "And you didn't tell me. I thought if you hadn't mentioned it, it was because you didn't want to talk about it," he said defensively. Jennifer sighed. Another person who knew important things about her life and hadn't shared. "Bradley, I need a favor. Can you watch the kids this afternoon? I need to go to St. Clair to settle a matter." "Of course. But is everything okay?" "I hope so." Jennifer went back home and explained to the children that she would be out for a few hours and that they would stay with Uncle Bradley. They loved the neighbor, who always brought sweets and let them feed his chickens. The trip to St. Clair was tense. Jennifer drove Michael's old Civic thinking about the possibilities. If there really was a second will leaving the farmhand's house to her in-laws, that would complicate things legally, but maybe make it easier emotionally. At least there would be an official justification for them being there. Dr. Harrison's office was in an old house in downtown St. Clair. A man around 60 with a graying beard and glasses greeted Jennifer cordially. "How can I help you?" "Doctor, my name is Jennifer Morgan. I'm Michael Morgan's widow. I would like to know if there is any document in his name in your files. The lawyer consulted his records and, to Jennifer's surprise, found something. Yes, there is a will registered in the name of Michael Morgan, made 2.5 years ago. Jennifer's heart pounded, so it was true. Can I see the document? Of course, you are the main beneficiary. Dr. Harrison brought a folder and took out some pages. Jennifer read the document carefully. Indeed, Michael had left the farmhand's house to Margaret and William Morgan on the condition that they could only take possession if they returned and reconciled with the family. Why did he make a second will? She asked the lawyer. He told me he wanted to ensure his parents had a chance to return to the family, but only if they showed real intention of reconciliation, explained the doctor. The main will left everything to you and the children. This was just an addendum specifically about the farmhand's house. And why wasn't it executed before? Because the condition hadn't been met. The parents hadn't shown up. Until now. Jennifer left the office with a copy of the document, feeling even more confused. Michael really had thought of everything. Even hurt by his parents, he had left a door open for reconciliation. On the way back home, she stopped at the cemetery where Michael was buried. It was the first time she had been there since the funeral 2 years before. She found the simple grave with a wooden cross she had commissioned herself. "Michael," she whispered, sitting on the grass beside the headstone, "why didn't you tell me about all this?" Obviously, there was no answer. But Jennifer felt better being there, trying to understand her husband's decisions. "They seem to be good people, you know," she continued, speaking softly. "Sorry for what they did. And the children deserve to know their grandparents." A gentle breeze swayed the flowers someone had left on the neighboring grave. Jennifer didn't know if she believed in signs, but she chose to interpret that as approval. When she got home, the children were playing in the backyard with Bradley, who was teaching Nathan how to fix a broken toy. "Mom!" shouted Emily, running to hug her. "Uncle Bradley said you went to take care of important things." "Yes, I did, my love. And I discovered important things too." After Bradley left, Jennifer gathered the 4 children in the living room. "Kids, we're going to meet your grandparents tomorrow." The reaction was one of general excitement. Nathan asked some practical questions about how the meeting would go. Emily wanted to know if she could bring her doll to show her grandmother. Tyler asked if the grandparents would like him, and Lily simply clapped her hands. "But first," continued Jennifer, "we need to establish some rules. Your grandparents made mistakes in the past, but they are sorry. You must be polite and affectionate, but you must also tell me if anything bothers you." "What kind of thing, Mom?" asked Nathan. "Anything that makes you feel uncomfortable or confused, okay?" Everyone agreed eagerly. The next morning, Jennifer woke up earlier than usual. She got the children ready in their best clothes and combed Emily's hair with special care. She herself put on a blue dress that Michael always said looked nice on her. They walked together to the caretaker's house. The children were anxious but well-behaved. Jennifer knocked on the door and Margaret answered immediately, as if she had been waiting just inside. "Oh my God," she whispered, seeing her 4 grandchildren up close for the first time. William appeared behind her, and Jennifer saw tears welling up in his eyes. "They look just like Michael when he was little," he murmured. The introductions were made carefully. Margaret knelt on the floor to be at eye level with Lily, the youngest, who at first hid behind her mother's skirt. William talked to Nathan about the toy he had brought. Emily showed her doll to her grandmother, who praised the little dress she had sewn for the doll herself. The 3 teenage cousins were also introduced. The children were impressed to discover they had older cousins, and Brandon, Connor, and Logan were very patient, answering the little ones' questions. "Do you really live here?" asked Nathan, always direct. "We live with our grandparents," Gabriel explained diplomatically. "And where is your father?" continued Nathan. Jennifer tensed up, but Brandon answered naturally. "Our father is traveling for work. We're staying with our grandparents until he gets back." It was a white lie, but Jennifer mentally thanked the boy for sparing the children a more complicated explanation. The morning passed surprisingly harmoniously. Margaret showed the children how to feed the chickens they had managed to raise. William taught Nathan how to identify different types of wood. Connor and Logan played soccer with Tyler in the backyard. Jennifer watched everything from a distance, trying to assess the situation. Her in-laws really did seem like caring people, and their interaction with the children was natural and affectionate. The teenage cousins were polite and responsible. "Grandma," said Emily at one point, testing the new word, "do you know how to make cake?" "Yes, I do, my love. Do you like cake?" "I love it. Mommy makes cake sometimes, but she said it's hard." "How about if Grandma teaches your mom a special recipe?" suggested Margaret, looking at Jennifer. "That would be great," replied Jennifer, realizing she actually liked the idea. It was during lunch that the first tension appeared. Margaret had prepared a simple but tasty meal, and everyone was sitting around the makeshift table that William had made with planks. "Mom," said Nathan, always observant, "why did Dad never bring us to meet our grandparents before?" The silence that followed was heavy. Jennifer looked at Margaret and William, who seemed not to know how to respond. "Because," said Jennifer carefully, "sometimes adults fight and don't talk to each other for a while. Like when you and Emily fight and give each other the silent treatment." "But you always make up afterwards," observed Tyler. "Exactly," said Margaret, finding an opening. "It's just that sometimes adults take longer to make up. And sometimes it's too late." Nathan seemed to understand the subject was delicate and changed the topic, asking if Brandon knew how to play video games. After lunch, while the children played, Jennifer had a private conversation with Margaret and William. "I went to St. Clair yesterday," she said. "I saw the document." "And?" asked William anxiously. "It's genuine. Michael really left the caretaker's house for you." Margaret began to cry silently. "Does that mean we can stay?" "Legally, you have the right to the house," confirmed Jennifer. "But I want to establish some agreements between us." "Anything," said William quickly. "First, I want you to understand that I am the one who makes decisions about my children. You can advise, you can help, but the final word on education, rules, and discipline is always mine." "We completely agree," said Margaret. "Second, I want total honesty. No more secrets, no more lies, even if they're well-intentioned." "Agreed." "Third, about the boys." Jennifer looked in the direction where Brandon, Connor, and Logan were playing. "They can stay here as long as they need, but I want to help find a permanent solution for their situation." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that maybe we can work together to make this property more productive, everyone working together, each contributing what they can." William visibly perked up. "I've always been good with farming. I could help expand the garden, maybe plant some higher-value crops. And I know how to sew, I know how to cook, I know how to keep house," added Margaret. "I could help with the children when you needed to work." "And the boys are hard workers," added William. "Brandon is finishing high school, but Connor and Logan could study at the school in town and help here in their spare time." Jennifer felt a hope growing in her chest. Perhaps the situation that had started as a problem could turn into a solution. "There's one more thing," she said, "about David." Her in-laws' faces darkened again. "What about him? I want to know when he last showed up here, and I want you to tell me when he shows up again." "Why?" "Because if we're going to be a family, we need to resolve all outstanding issues, including the issue of David and his responsibility toward his own children." Margaret and William agreed to the condition. The rest of the afternoon passed peacefully, with the children gradually getting used to their new relatives. When it was time to go home, Lily didn't want to stop playing with the chickens, and Emily asked to come back the next day to learn how to make the cake her grandmother had promised to teach her. "Can we come visit Grandpa and Grandma tomorrow?" asked Nathan. "We can," confirmed Jennifer. "In fact, Grandpa and Grandma are going to live here on the property now." "Forever?" asked Tyler excitedly. "Forever." The weeks that followed brought significant changes to the family's routine. Margaret proved to be a loving grandmother, but respectful of the boundaries Jennifer had established. William began working on expanding the garden and offered to fix several things in the main house that had been broken since Michael's departure. Brandon showed himself to be a responsible and intelligent young man. He helped Jennifer with some heavier tasks and became a sort of older brother for Nathan, who was loving having a cousin to talk to about big boy stuff. Connor and Logan enrolled in the school in town and quickly adapted. They rode the school bus together with Nathan and Emily, who were very proud to introduce their cousins to their classmates. The situation was working out better than Jennifer had dared to hope. The property was busier, more productive, and the children were visibly happier having a larger family. That's when David showed up. Jennifer was in the kitchen preparing lunch when she heard raised voices coming from the direction of the caretaker's house. She went out to investigate and saw a man who was clearly Michael's brother arguing with William in the yard. David was about 40 years old, with messy dark hair and clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in days. He was gesturing a lot and speaking loudly, obviously agitated. "Where are my kids?" he shouted. "Where are Brandon, Connor, and Logan?" "They're at school," William replied calmly, "where you should have put them a long time ago." "Don't you lecture me, old man. They're my kids. I'll do what I want with them." Jennifer approached, determined to introduce herself before the argument escalated further. "You must be David," she said, interrupting the argument. David turned to her, clearly surprised. "And who are you?" "Jennifer, your brother Michael's widow, and the owner of this property." David's expression changed immediately. He looked her up and down with a smile that Jennifer didn't like at all. Ah, the famous sister-in-law. Michael always talked about the beautiful wife he had managed to get. "David," warned William. "What, Dad? Can't I compliment my sister-in-law?" Jennifer felt there was something wrong with the way David was looking at her, but she decided to stay focused on the main issue. "Your children are well cared for here," she said firmly. "They're studying, they have food, shelter, and affection." "That's great," said David, but his voice sounded sarcastic. "And who's paying for all this?" "All of us working together." "I see," David gave an unpleasant laugh. "And did my brother leave anything for me in the will?" "David," said Margaret, who had arrived upon hearing the argument. "What kind of question is that?" "It's a legitimate question, Mom. Michael was always the favorite son, the one who inherited the property, the one who did well in life. I want to know if he remembered his poor brother when he left." Jennifer felt anger growing inside her. The way David spoke about Michael bothered her deeply. "Your brother didn't leave anything specific for you," she said curtly. "But your children have a home here for as long as they need it." "How generous," David said sarcastically. "The rich widow offering charity to her poor nephews." "David, stop that right now," said William with authority. "Jennifer is being good to us, more than we deserve after what we did to Michael." "What you did was ridiculous indeed," David agreed. "Losing a son over stupid prejudice." Jennifer saw Margaret flinch at her youngest son's words. "But I didn't do anything," David continued. "I always defended Michael and his choice, so I think I deserve some consideration here." "What kind of consideration?" asked Jennifer suspiciously. "Well, this property is big. There should be room for everyone to live here comfortably, right?" Jennifer immediately understood where David was going. "You want to live here too?" "Why not? They're my kids, it's my family. And I need a place to restart my life." "Where were you for the last 8 months?" asked Jennifer, crossing her arms. "Working. Trying to save money to give the boys a better life." "What were you working at?" David hesitated before answering. "Different things, construction, farm work, hauling, and the money you saved." "Well, I haven't saved much yet, but—" "David," interrupted William, "were you drinking again?" "What do you all think of me?" David said defensively. "Of course not." But Jennifer noticed he didn't look anyone in the eye when he answered. "Regardless of that," David continued, "I am the boys' father. I have the right to be near them." "You have the right," Jennifer agreed. "But you don't have the right to live on my property without contributing anything." "I do contribute. I'm their father." "Being a father isn't just about fathering children," Jennifer said firmly. "It's about caring, being present, giving support. Where were you when your children needed you?" "I was trying to sort my life out." "For 8 months?" The argument was interrupted by the arrival of the children from school. Nathan, Emily, Connor, and Logan got off the school bus talking animatedly, but stopped when they saw the tension in the yard. Brandon arrived a few minutes later, returning from the prep course he was taking in the city. When he saw his father, his expression changed completely. "Dad?" he said, with no enthusiasm in his voice. "Brandon, my son." David opened his arms as if expecting a warm hug. Brandon approached slowly and gave his father a quick, formal hug. Connor and Logan did the same, but Jennifer noticed that none of the three seemed truly happy to see their father. "How are you boys?" asked David, trying to sound affectionate. "We're fine," Brandon replied politely. "Studying, helping our grandparents." "That's good. And are you enjoying getting to know your cousins?" "Very much," said Connor, looking at Nathan and Emily with genuine affection. "Great. So it's time for us to leave here and start our new life." The silence that followed was heavy. Jennifer saw Brandon's face pale. "Leave?" asked Logan, only 12 years old but clearly apprehensive. "Of course, son. Dad has sorted things out. Now we can live together again." "Where?" asked Connor. "Well, I'm still working out the details, but—" "David," interrupted Margaret. "The boys are fine here. They're studying. They have a routine." "Mom, they're my children. I can take them whenever I want." Jennifer saw tears welling up in Logan's eyes and felt her anger rise. "Actually," she said, trying to keep her voice calm, "you can't." "What do you mean?" "Your children have been in the care of your parents for 8 months. They're enrolled in the local school. They have an established routine. You can't just show up and uproot them from a stable situation." "They're my children," David repeated, anger now in his voice. "Yes, they are, but you abandoned them. If you want to take them, you'll have to prove you can care for them properly." "And who are you to demand that from me?" "I'm the person providing a stable home for them, while you can't manage to do that." David took a threatening step toward Jennifer, but William immediately stepped between them. "David, you will calm down right now. Get out of the way, old man." "I won't move, and you will not threaten this woman who has been caring for your children better than you have managed in recent years." The tension in the air was palpable. Nathan and Emily moved closer to Jennifer, clearly frightened. Brandon positioned himself protectively in front of his younger siblings. "All right," said David, backing off. "All right, I'll leave for today, but I'll be back tomorrow and we will talk properly about the boys." "You can come back whenever you want," said Jennifer, "but if you want to take your children, you'll have to convince me you can care for them properly." David glared at her angrily, but said nothing more. He addressed his sons. "Boys, we'll talk tomorrow, okay?" Brandon just nodded. Connor and Logan seemed relieved their father was leaving. After David drove off in an old, noisy car, everyone was silent for a few minutes. "Grandpa," Logan finally said, "do we have to go with him?" William knelt down to his grandson's level. "I don't know, my boy. Legally, he is your father." "But we don't want to go," Connor said quietly. "Why not?" asked Jennifer, though she suspected the answer. "Because when we were with him," explained Brandon, "we never knew if there would be food at home, if he would be sober, if some problem would show up. Here we feel safe," added Logan. Jennifer felt her heart tighten. How could David want to take his children from a stable situation? "Let's go inside and talk calmly," she said. "All together." That night, after putting her own children to sleep, Jennifer had a long conversation with Margaret, William, and the 3 grandchildren. "I want you to tell me everything about what it was like living with David," she said. Brandon, being the oldest and most responsible, spoke for the family. "Aunt Jennifer, our father is not a bad person, but he has problems with drinking. Sometimes he would be away from home for days, and we were left alone. Sometimes there was no food. Sometimes there was no money for the school bus." "And when he was home?" asked Jennifer. "It depended," said Connor. "When he was sober, he was affectionate. He promised he would change, that he would stop drinking, that he would get a steady job. But he never managed to," added Logan sadly. "And how did you end up with your grandparents?" "One day he showed up at home and said he was going to travel to find work," explained Brandon. "Said it was only for a few weeks that he'd come back with money. He brought us here and told our grandparents it was temporary." "That was 8 months ago," said Margaret, "and we were happy to help." "He sent money sometimes," admitted Connor. "Not much, but he did." "And did you want him to come back?" The 3 boys looked at each other. "We wanted him to come back different," said Brandon honestly. "We wanted him to be the father he promised to be when he was sober." "But we know he hasn't changed," said Logan quietly. Jennifer absorbed all the information. It was a delicate situation. Legally, David had rights over his children. But morally, it was clear the boys were better off with their grandparents. "Are you afraid of him?" she asked. "Not afraid," said Brandon carefully. "He never hurt us, but we're afraid of the instability. Of what happens when he drinks," added Connor. "And your mother? Did you ever try to get in touch with her?" "She calls sometimes," admitted Brandon. "Wants us to go live with her, but she lives very far away and is married again. Her new husband doesn't want 3 teenagers in the house." Jennifer sighed. It was a complex situation, with no easy solutions. "What do you want to happen?" she finally asked. "We want to stay here," said Logan immediately. "With our grandparents, with you, with our cousins," added Connor. "We want to finish our studies here, build our lives here," said Brandon. "But we also want our father to be part of our lives when he's doing well. And if he insists on taking you away?" "We'll go," said Brandon resignedly. "We're minors. We don't have a choice." "Maybe you do," murmured Jennifer, thinking. "How so?" "Leave it to me. Tomorrow, when your father returns, I'll talk to him." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The next day, Jennifer woke up determined. She had a plan, but she needed everyone's cooperation for it to work. She talked with Margaret and William during breakfast, while the children got ready for school. "I want to offer David an agreement," she explained, "something that's good for everyone." "What kind of agreement?" asked Margaret. "He can live here on the property, but with clear conditions. He works, contributes to expenses, and doesn't drink. In return, he stays close to his children and has a chance to rebuild his relationship with them." William seemed skeptical. "Do you think he'll accept?" "I don't know. But it's worth trying. The alternative is him taking the boys into an unstable situation, and nobody wins from that." David showed up around noon as he had promised. This time he was better groomed, had showered and put on clean clothes, but Jennifer could still detect a faint smell of alcohol coming from him. "I came to get my sons," he said without preamble. "First, let's talk," said Jennifer, pointing to a chair on the porch of the main house. "About what?" "About what's best for Brandon, Connor, and Logan." David sat down reluctantly. "What's best for them is to be with their father." "I agree, but you need to be the father they deserve, not just someone who shares blood with them." "I am a good father. David, your sons spent 8 months not knowing if you were alive or dead. You showed up a few times, sending little money and no news. That's not being a good father." David fell silent, clearly uncomfortable with the truth. "I was working," he murmured. "And drinking? That's none of your business." "It is, because your sons are my business now. They live on my property, go to school in my town, are part of my family." "They are not your family," David said angrily. "Yes, they are, and I will fight for them as I fight for my own children. You have no right to them. Then prove that you do. Prove you can take care of them." "How? Where are you living currently?" David hesitated. "I'm looking for a place." "Are you living in the car?" "Temporarily." "What is your current job?" "I'm between jobs." "For how long?" "A few weeks." "And the money to support 3 teenagers?" "I'll manage." "When?" "Soon." Jennifer sighed. "David, you know yourself. You're not in a position to care for your sons right now. And they know it too." "Did they say something?" "They didn't need to. I see it in their eyes. They love you, but they're afraid of the instability." David was silent for a long time. Jennifer could see an internal struggle happening. "What do you want me to do?" he asked finally. "I want you to accept help. To stay here, work with us, contribute to the family, and become the father your sons deserve. Here on the property? There's a small building in the back that William can fix up for you. Nothing fancy, but a place of your own. In return, you work the land, contribute to expenses, and most importantly, stay sober. And if I don't accept, then you take your sons and try to make a life together. But if in 6 months they're in a bad situation, I will fight for custody. You would do that?" "I would, because I love them as if they were my own nephews." David fell silent again, processing the proposal. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. It's not for you. It's for the boys. And maybe it's for the memory of Michael, who certainly would have wanted to see his brother well. Did you guys talk about me? Michael didn't talk about family. Now I understand why. But I'm sure he worried about you. How can you be sure? Because I knew Michael. He was a person who cared about the people he loved even when he was hurt. Tears began to well up in David's eyes. I never meant to let anyone down, he said, his voice choked. I just couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't hold a job. I couldn't be the father they deserved. But you can learn, said Jennifer gently. With help, with support, you can learn. And if I fail again, then we try again. But this time, you won't be alone. David wiped the tears with his shirt sleeve. What are the exact conditions? First, no alcohol on the property. If you drink, you have to leave. Agreed. Second, you work. Help with the farming, with maintenance, with whatever is needed. Agreed. Third, you contribute financially. It doesn't have to be much at first, but something. Agreed. Second, you respect the house rules. I'm the one who makes the final decisions about the children, all of them. Agreed. And last, you get treatment. You go to support meetings, talk to someone, seek professional help for the alcoholism. David hesitated at this last condition. I don't know if there's that kind of thing in the region. We'll find out, and if there isn't any here, you go to the neighboring town. All right? And David? Yes? If you break any of these rules, you leave and the boys stay. No discussion, no second chance. I understand. Are you sure you want to try? I am. Then let's talk to your sons and see what they think of the idea. The boys arrived from school and were called for a family meeting. Jennifer explained the agreement she had proposed for their father and asked for their opinion. Dad, said Brandon carefully, are you sure you want to try again? I am, son. This time will be different. You've said that before, observed Connor. I know, but this time I have help. I have you. I have the grandparents. I have Jennifer. I won't be alone. And if it doesn't work, asked Logan, then I'll leave and you stay here where you're happy, said David honestly. The three brothers looked at each other and seemed to reach a silent agreement. Okay, said Brandon, but we want all the rules to be respected. They will be, promised David. And if you drink even once, said Connor firmly, we don't want any contact until you get real treatment. Connor, warned Margaret. No, Grandma, he needs to know. We've suffered a lot because of it. The boy is right, said David. I deserve for you to be tough on me. I'll prove I deserve another chance. In the following weeks, the family dynamic changed again. William and Brandon worked together to renovate the small room at the back of the property, turning it into a simple but comfortable home for David. David began working the land with enthusiasm. He really understood farming and contributed several ideas to improve production. He also proved skilled with repairs and maintenance. Most importantly, he was keeping his promise to stay sober. Jennifer watched him carefully, and although she could see it was sometimes hard for him, David was genuinely trying. His relationship with his sons was gradually improving. Brandon was still cautious, but Connor and Logan began to get closer to their father. They played soccer together after chores, and David helped with homework. Jennifer found a support group for alcoholics in St. Clair, and David began attending meetings twice a week. He always returned from these meetings more thoughtful, but also more determined. How was it today? Jennifer would sometimes ask. Hard, he would answer honestly, but necessary. The property was prospering with the whole family working together. The vegetable garden had tripled in size. They had started a small pig farm, and Margaret was selling sweets and savory snacks at the town market. The children were adapting well to the expanded family. Nathan loved having older cousins and was learning many things from Brandon. Emily had grown especially attached to Margaret, who was teaching her to sew and cook. Tyler and Logan became inseparable, and even little Lily had accepted William as a loving grandfather. It was during a family dinner, 3 months after David's return, that a new development arose. I have a proposal for everyone, Jennifer said to the whole gathered family. What kind of proposal? Asked Brandon. I found out there's a spring of pure water in a part of the property we've never explored. With all of us working, we could develop a small bottled water business. How so? Asked David, interested. Selling pure water to the region. There's a market for that, especially water from a natural spring. Would that make money? Asked Connor. It could. It would be a long-term project, but everyone could participate and have a stable source of income. William visibly perked up. How did you discover this spring? I was reading the diary that Michael kept. He had noted the discovery of a water source, but never had time to investigate. Michael kept a diary? Asked Nathan, curious. He did, and he wrote many beautiful things about you all, said Jennifer, smiling at her children. Can we see it? When you're older, some things are very personal. And where is this spring? Asked David. I'll show you tomorrow. I used the drone to locate the exact spot. The next day, the whole family walked to the spot Jennifer had identified. It was a more remote area of the property near a small hill. There was indeed a spring of crystal-clear water bubbling up between the rocks. My God, said Margaret, tasting the water. It's delicious. And it seems to be a constant source, observed William, checking the flow. How would the business work? Asked Brandon, always practical. First, we'd have to officially test the water quality, then set up a simple collection and bottling system. Start small, selling locally, and grow gradually. And would everyone participate? Asked David. Everyone who wanted to. It would be a real family business. I know a bit about collection systems, said David. I learned when I worked on a farm that had artesian wells. And I could handle the sales part, offered Brandon. I know the merchants in town. Connor and I could help with bottling after school, offered Logan. And I could make the labels, said Margaret excitedly. And the initial investment? Asked William, always cautious. We can start very simply. Use reused bottles, do everything manually at first. The important thing is to test if there's a market. How long would it take to start? Asked Nathan. If we can get the water test done in the next few weeks, we could start before the end of the year. And if it works? Asked Emily. If it works, everyone will have a source of income. And if it works very well, we could expand and even employ other people from the region. The family's excitement was contagious. For the first time since Michael's departure, Jennifer felt there was real hope for prosperity and stability for everyone. There's one more thing, she said after everyone agreed on the project. If we're going to be partners in this business, we need to formalize some aspects of our living situation. How so? Asked David. I want us to make a written agreement about how we're going to live here, about everyone's responsibilities, about how decisions will be made, not out of distrust, but so everyone knows exactly what to expect. I think it's a good idea, agreed Brandon. And another thing, continued Jennifer, looking specifically at David. I want you to legalize your situation with the boys. How so? Get in touch with their mother. Talk about shared custody, about child support, about how things will work officially. The boys deserve clarity about their legal situation. David looked visibly uncomfortable. Do you think it's necessary? I do. And I think the more transparent and official it is, the better for everyone. All right. During the following weeks, many things moved forward. The water tests confirmed it was of excellent quality, suitable for consumption and with interesting mineral characteristics. David got in touch with his ex-wife and, surprisingly, she was open to talking about the children's situation. How did the conversation go? Asked Jennifer when David returned from the call. Better than expected, he admitted. She is willing to make a shared custody agreement where the boys stay mainly here, but spend vacations with her. And did she find out about your move? She did. And she seemed relieved. Said she always hoped I would get my act together. What about child support? We agreed that when the water business is up and running, I will contribute financially to her as well. In the meantime, she understands I am rebuilding my life. Sounds fair. And you know what else? She wants to meet you. Said that anyone who managed to make me stop drinking and take proper care of my kids must be a special person. Jennifer felt touched by the comment. The first batch of bottled water was ready at the end of November. It was only 50 bottles of recycled glass, with labels made by hand by Margaret, but they represented the start of something new. "What are we going to call our brand?" asked Connor during the meeting where they decided the final details. "How about Morgan Water?" suggested Nathan, because of the family's last name. "I like it," said Brandon. "It's simple and reminds you of family." "Then Morgan Water it is," decided Jennifer. The first sales test was at the town fair. Brandon and Jennifer set up a small booth and offered free tastings. The response was better than they expected. They sold all 50 bottles and even took orders for the following week. "I think we have a business," said Jennifer, counting the coins at the end of the day. "How much did we make?" asked Brandon eagerly. "Enough to buy more bottles and still have a little left to split among everyone." The news was met with celebration at home. For the first time in a long while, Jennifer could see a prosperous future for her extended family. In the following weeks, the business grew quickly. They secured a small contract to supply water to 3 restaurants in town, and some families started placing regular orders. With the money they began to earn, they were able to improve the water collection system and invest in better bottling equipment. Brandon enrolled in a technical administration course, Connor started helping more intensively after school, and Logan showed a talent for label design. David proved to be a valuable partner with practical knowledge that none of the others had. More importantly, he was keeping his promise of sobriety and becoming the father his children deserved. "How are you feeling?" Jennifer asked him during a private conversation at the end of the year. "Better than I have felt in years," he admitted. "For the first time, I feel like I have a purpose, that I am useful to my family." "You always were useful. You just needed help to see it. And I thank you every day for giving me that chance." "You are the one who took the chance. I just offered it." It was Christmas Eve when Jennifer decided to reflect more deeply on everything that had happened. She was sitting on the porch of the main house, watching her children playing in the yard with their cousins, while the grandparents prepared dinner in the kitchen. Margaret approached with 2 cups of coffee. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sitting next to Jennifer. "About how everything changed since I used that drone," replied Jennifer with a smile. "Do you regret anything?" "No, not one bit. And you?" "Neither do I. On the contrary, I think Michael would be proud to see how our family came together. I think so." "Jennifer," said Margaret after a while, "I want to apologize to you again. We've already talked about this." "I know, but I want you to know that you have become the daughter we always wanted to have. You are strong, you are brave, you are generous. Michael chose well." Jennifer felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you. This means a lot to me, and I want you to know that, regardless of any document or will, this land is yours. We are here because you allow it, because you welcomed us. We will never forget that. This land is ours, belongs to the whole family." That night, during the Christmas dinner, Jennifer looked around the table and saw a large, close-knit family. There was her son Nathan, who was becoming a responsible young man under the influence of his older cousins. Emily, who was blossoming with her grandmother's affection. Tyler, who had found in Logan a best friend. And little Lily, who now had grandparents to spoil her. There was Brandon, who was preparing for college entrance exams and dreamed of studying business administration to help expand the family business. Connor, who had discovered a talent for farming and wanted to study agronomy. Logan, who combined artistic creativity with practical sense. There were Margaret and William, who could finally be the loving grandparents they had always wanted to be. And there was David, who was reclaiming the place of father and brother he had lost. "I want to make a toast," said Jennifer, raising her glass of Morgan water. "To family," Nathan said immediately. "No," corrected Jennifer, "to second chances." "To second chances," everyone repeated in unison. "And to unexpected discoveries," added Brandon. "And to drones," said Emily, making everyone laugh. "And to forgiveness," completed Margaret, moved. "And to the future," David finished. As everyone toasted and chatted animatedly about plans for the coming year, Jennifer thought of Michael. Wherever he was, he would surely be happy to see that the secrets he had kept to protect the family had ended up being the key to uniting it more than ever. The Morgan water business was thriving. The family was united. The children were happy and safe. And Jennifer had discovered that sometimes life's obstacles are actually opportunities in disguise. When everyone went to sleep on that Christmas night, Jennifer stayed alone on the porch for a few minutes looking at the stars. She thought of the day she had borrowed the neighbor's drone to check the storm damage. She never imagined that little flying device would reveal not just a secret, but an entire future. "Thank you, Michael," she whispered to the starry sky, "for planting the seeds of reconciliation, even when you were hurt, for believing in forgiveness, even when it was hard, for leaving me a family larger than I ever dreamed of having." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees, like a tender response from the past to the present. Jennifer smiled, went inside, and got ready for bed, knowing the future was full of possibilities. The following year, Morgan Water had become a small, thriving business. They hired 2 people from town to help with production, and Brandon was studying ways to expand to neighboring towns. David completed 1 year of sobriety and was regularly attending support meetings. His relationship with his children was solid and affectionate. He had even started dating a woman from town, a widowed teacher he met at one of the community meetings. "Is she nice?" Jennifer asked when David mentioned the relationship. "She is, and she understands my situation. She's been through hardships in life too." "Have the boys met her?" "Not yet. I want to be sure before I introduce her to them." Wise decision. Connor and Logan were doing well in school and helping more and more with the business. Brandon had passed his college entrance exams and would start his business administration course next semester, but would continue living on the property and helping the family. Jennifer's own children were growing and changing. Nathan, now 9, was more confident and responsible. Emily had become a talented little seamstress under Margaret's guidance. Tyler was Bruno's best friend and was learning to play guitar with William, and Lily, at 3 years old, was the spoiled little princess of the entire family. "Mom," said Nathan one day while they were working together in the vegetable garden, "do you remember when we didn't know our grandparents?" "Of course I remember. It seems like a long time ago, doesn't it?" "It does seem that way." "I like our big family." "Me too, sweetheart." "And do you think Dad would be happy to know we met our grandparents?" Jennifer paused her work and looked at her son. "I think so. I think he would be very happy to know we managed to unite his family." "Even after the fight they had?" "Especially because of the fight. Sometimes people fight because they love each other very much, and when they make peace, the love grows even bigger." "Like when Emily and I fight and then become friends again?" "Exactly like when you and Emily make up." It was at the end of the 2nd year after the family discovery that something unexpected happened. Jennifer was testing the drone again, this time to check the expansion of the planting, when Bradley appeared with surprising news. "Jennifer, someone in town is asking about the property." "Asking how?" "An outsider, seems to be from some company. He's asking about buying land in the region." "Buying for what?" "I'm not sure. Something about rural development or agribusiness." Jennifer felt immediate concern. Over the last 2 years, they had transformed the property into something prosperous and functional. The idea that someone might try to buy it or interfere with their family life alarmed her. "Did you find out more details?" "Only that he's asking specifically about properties with water sources." Jennifer's heart raced. The spring they used for Morgan Water was the heart of the family business. If someone wanted to buy the property because of the water, it could mean the end of everything they had built. "Bradley, can you find out more about this man?" "I can try. But Jennifer, you're not thinking of selling, are you?" "Of course not. This property is our home, our livelihood, our life. But I need to know if there's any legal or commercial threat." That night, Jennifer gathered the whole family to share her concern. "Someone is interested in our property?" asked Brandon, immediately worried. "It seems so, specifically because of the water." "Can they force us to sell?" asked Connor nervously. "They can't force us," said William. "But they can create bureaucratic difficulties if they want to." "What kind of difficulties?" asked David. Questions about water use permits, business regulations, environmental issues, explained Jennifer. If they have resources and lawyers, they can make our lives very difficult. What can we do? Asked Margaret worriedly. First, find out exactly who this person is and what they want. Second, make sure all our documents are in order. Third, prepare to defend what is ours. What if they offer a lot of money? Asked Logan, with the curiosity of a 13-year-old. There isn't enough money in the world to be worth our family and our life here, Jennifer replied firmly. In the following days, Bradley managed to find out more information. The man's name was Robert Thompson, and he represented a company from New York, specializing in acquiring rural properties for agribusiness project development. He was specifically interested in land with water resources for developing large-scale irrigated agriculture. Has he made offers for other properties in the region? Asked Jennifer. Yes, he has. The folks from the farm on the other side of town said he offered good money, but they didn't want to sell. And did he insist? He did. He came back 3 times with bigger offers. And now he hired a local lawyer to investigate legal issues of the properties that didn't want to sell. Jennifer felt a chill in her stomach. If Robert Thompson was hiring lawyers to pressure owners who didn't want to sell, it meant he could create serious problems for them. I think we need our own lawyer, she said during the family dinner. Do we have money for that? Asked Brandon worriedly. The business is going well, we can at least pay for a consultation. I know a lawyer in St. Clair, said David. Dr. Ferdinand. He helped me with some issues when I settled with my ex-wife. He's honest and doesn't charge too much. Let's schedule a consultation with him then. Dr. Ferdinand received Jennifer and David in his simple office in downtown St. Clair. He was a man of about 45, with a serious but approachable appearance. Tell me about the situation, he said after the initial greetings. Jennifer explained about the property, about the water business, about the family living there, and about Robert Thompson's interest. Said the lawyer, taking notes. And are all the property documents in order? I think so. My husband left everything to me in the will. And about the water use. Do you have environmental licenses? Jennifer and David exchanged glances. What kind of licenses? Asked Jennifer. For commercial use of water, you need authorization from the State Environmental Agency. It's a technical issue, but an important one. And if we don't have this authorization, you can be fined and forced to stop the business until you regularize the situation. And how long does it take to regularize? It depends. If everything is correct, a few months. If there are complications, it can take over a year. And during that time? During that time, you cannot sell water commercially. Jennifer felt her world collapse. If they had to stop the business for months, or even over a year, the whole family would lose their main source of income. Doctor, asked David, is it possible that this Robert Thompson knows about these legal issues and is planning to use this against us? It's possible, and unfortunately, it's a common strategy. Big companies hire specialists to find irregularities in properties they want to acquire, and then use those irregularities to pressure owners to sell. Is that legal? Technically, yes. If there are real irregularities, they have the right to report them. The problem is that sometimes the irregularities are simple bureaucratic matters that any honest owner would easily resolve if properly guided. What do you advise us to do? First, let's check exactly what documents you have and which are missing. Second, let's start the regularization process immediately before any complaint is filed. Third, let's prepare to defend your rights if necessary. And how much will that cost? Today's consultation is free. If you want me to represent you, we can arrange a payment plan that fits your budget. Why are you helping us like this? Asked Jennifer, surprised by the generosity. Because I know the tactics of these big companies. They come from outside, exploit legal technicalities to pressure local families, and often destroy entire communities. You seem like an honest family who just wants to live decently from your work. Jennifer felt a wave of gratitude for the lawyer. What do we need to do first? First, bring all the property documents. Second, let's go to the Environmental Agency to check exactly what is needed to regularize the water use. Third, let's research more about this company and this Robert Thompson. The following week was intense. Jennifer and Brandon organized all the property documents, including the wills, certificates, and all papers related to the water business. Dr. Ferdinand accompanied them to the Environmental Agency, where they discovered that a few licenses were indeed missing, but nothing that would be difficult to resolve. "It's mainly a matter of bureaucracy," explained the agency employee. "Your spring is small, it's a family business. There's no environmental risk, you just need to fill out the correct forms and pay the fees." "How long does it take?" "If all the documents are correct, about 2 months. "And in the meantime, can we continue selling water?" "Technically, no. But if you file the application today, you can continue operating while the process is underway, as long as you don't increase production." It was an acceptable solution. They filed all the necessary documents that same day and left the Environmental Agency with receipts authorizing them to continue the business temporarily. "At least we won't have to stop production," said Brandon on the way back. "And now you are legally protected," added Dr. Ferdinand. "If anyone tries to report you, you're already in the regularization process." "What about Robert Thompson?" "I looked into him. He really represents a large company from New York. They've bought several properties in the northern part of the state using questionable methods. But I didn't find anything illegal." "So there's nothing we can do?" "We can prepare, and we can make sure you are legally protected." It was exactly 1 week later that Robert Thompson appeared at the property. Jennifer was working in the garden when she saw an expensive sedan stop at the entrance of the driveway. A man in a suit got out and walked toward her. "Are you Jennifer Morgan?" "I am. How can I help you?" "My name is Robert Thompson. I represent the company Agro Development LLC. I would like to speak with you about your property." "About what, specifically?" "About a purchase proposal. The property is not for sale." "You haven't even heard our proposal yet." "I don't need to hear it. This is our home, our business, our life. It is not for sale." "Mrs. Morgan," said Robert with a smile Jennifer didn't like, "perhaps you should reconsider. We have the resources to make a very generous offer." "And I have the resources to keep my property, thank you." "Are you aware that there are pending legal issues related to the commercial use of water on your property?" Jennifer felt her blood boil, but remained calm. "I am aware of all legal issues related to my property, and they are all being handled properly." "Ah, good," said Robert, but his expression suggested he knew something she didn't. "Because environmental irregularities can result in very heavy fines." "Mr. Thompson," said Jennifer, stepping toward him with determination, "I'm going to be very clear. My property is not for sale. Not yesterday, not today, not tomorrow. If you have any legal complaint to make, do it through the proper channels. Otherwise, I ask you to leave my land." "You are making a mistake," said Robert, his mask of cordiality slipping. "We always get what we want, if not by fair means, then by foul." "Was that a threat?" "It was friendly advice." At that moment, William, David, and Brandon appeared, having heard the discussion. The 3 men positioned themselves beside Jennifer, forming a united group before the intruder. "Is there a problem here?" asked David, his tone warning. "No problem," said Robert, clearly intimidated by the presence of the men. "I was just making a business proposal." "The proposal was refused," said Brandon firmly. "I think you'd better leave." Robert looked at the 4 of them, assessed the situation, and decided to retreat. "Very well," he said, walking back to his car. "But this isn't over." "Is that a threat?" shouted William. Robert didn't answer, just got in his car and sped off, kicking up dust from the road. "That guy gives me the creeps," said Brandon. "Me too," agreed Jennifer. "I'm going to call Dr. Ferdinand and tell him about this visit." Dr. Ferdinand was concerned by the report. "His threats were too vague to constitute a crime," said the lawyer. "But write down everything he said, with date and time. If he bothers you again, we'll have more to work with." "And now?" "Now you go on with your lives as normal, and stay alert for any strange movements." Unfortunately, they didn't have to wait long. The following week, an inspector from the Environmental Agency showed up at the property for a routine inspection. The timing was obviously suspicious. "Who requested this inspection?" Jennifer asked the inspector. "It was an anonymous complaint about irregular use of water resources." Jennifer had no doubt about who had made the complaint, but kept her composure. "That's fine. All our paperwork for regularization has been filed." "Yes, I see it here in the system. You submitted the application 2 weeks ago." "Exactly." The inspector did a careful inspection of the spring and the collection system they had set up. To the family's relief, he found no environmental irregularities. "Everything is correct," he said at the end. "You have a simple, clean system, no water waste or environmental damage. When the permit comes through, everything will be regularized. And in the meantime, can we continue operating?" "Yes, you can, since you filed the application before the complaint." After the inspector left, the family gathered to discuss the situation. "They're going to keep trying to hurt us," said Brandon. "Probably," agreed Jennifer. "But they didn't find anything wrong, and we're legally protected." "What if they make up other problems?" asked Margaret worriedly. "Then we'll deal with them one at a time," said Jennifer determinedly. "We're not giving up on what we've built." "Aunt Jennifer," said Connor, "what if they actually make a really high offer for the property?" "Connor, son, there are some things you don't sell. This property isn't just land and water. It's our history, our family, our future. No amount of money can pay for that." "But what if it gets too hard to fight them?" "Then we fight harder," said David firmly. "I already lost my family once by not fighting for what was important. I won't lose again." David's determination touched everyone. Even Margaret, who had always been more cautious, was heartened by her son's words. "Your father is right," she said. "We will fight for our family." In the following weeks, Robert Thompson tried several other tactics. He sent an agronomist to evaluate the neighboring lands, clearly trying to intimidate the neighbors into pressuring Jennifer to sell. He made offers to other property owners in the region, trying to surround the Morgan family property. He also spread rumors in town about environmental problems on the property, trying to hurt Morgan water sales. Fortunately, the local customers knew and trusted the family, so sales weren't much affected. "It's a war of nerves," explained Dr. Ferdinand during one of his consultations. "He's trying to wear you down, to make you give up the fight." "We're not giving up," said Jennifer. "I know, but prepare yourselves because this could go on for a while." It was then that Brandon had a brilliant idea. "What if we did the opposite of what he's doing?" "How so?" asked Jennifer. "He's trying to isolate us, create problems for us. What if we did the opposite? What if we strengthened our position by creating alliances?" "What kind of alliances?" "With other property owners in the region, with the town's merchants, with the local community." "Go on," said Jennifer, interested. "Morgan Water is becoming known in the region. What if we expanded that? What if we created a cooperative with other small producers? What if we became a local economic force too important to ignore?" William got excited about the idea. "The boy is right. United we are stronger." "And how would we do that?" asked David. "We can talk to the neighbors who also received offers from the company. We can form a group of owners who commit to not selling to speculators. We can strengthen local businesses by buying from each other." "And we can use our story," added Margaret. "A family that reunited, that overcame difficulties, that built something good together. People like that kind of story." "It's true," agreed Jennifer. "Our story is inspiring, and it can inspire other families to stay united against outside pressures." In the following months, they put Brandon's plan into action. Jennifer and William talked to all the neighbors in the region, telling their story and proposing an informal alliance against real estate speculators. The response was surprisingly positive. Many rural property owners were worried about the pressure from big companies and were happy to have an organized alternative. They formed the Regional Rural Producers Association, with Jennifer as president and William as vice president. The association committed to defending the interests of small producers and promoting sustainable local economic development. Brandon organized a launch event for the association in the town's central square, where several families could present their products and tell their stories. Morgan Water was one of the stars of the event, and they gained new customers and even an opportunity to supply water to the municipal school. The event was covered by the local newspaper, and the Morgan family's story gained prominence. The headline read, "Family United by drone creates successful business and leads rural resistance movement. "Look at this," said Nathan, reading the newspaper with pride. "We're famous." "And look at this nice picture," said Emily, admiring the photo of the whole family gathered in front of the main house. The newspaper article had an unexpected effect. Several people from the town and neighboring towns began seeking out Morgan Water specifically because they wanted to support the family's story. Sales increased significantly. "The strength of our unity is spreading," observed Margaret, counting the day's sales money. Robert Thompson did not stand still. He tried to discredit the association, spreading rumors about imagined irregularities. He also tried to co-opt some association members with even larger offers. But the community-strengthening strategy was working. The rural property owners were more united than ever, and the local economy was strengthening with the increase in trade among the members. It was during an association meeting that unexpected news arrived. "Everyone," said Dr. Ferdinand, who had become the association's official lawyer, "I've received information about Agro Development, LLC." "What kind of information?" asked Jennifer. "They are being investigated by the Attorney General's office in New York for questionable business practices. It seems they used dubious methods to force several owners to sell their land. Is that good for us? Very good. If irregularities in their practices are proven, they could be banned from operating in the region." "And how long does that kind of investigation take?" "Several months, but in the meantime, they will avoid creating new problems that could worsen their situation." The news was met with celebration by the family and the association. Finally, there was hope that the pressure would lessen, and it really did. Robert Thompson stopped appearing in the region, and the intimidation tactics ceased. The Morgan family could once again focus on what truly mattered: tending the land, expanding the business, and enjoying family life. The environmental license for Morgan Water was approved 3 months later, without any issues. They threw a small party to celebrate, inviting the entire association and their neighbors. "Now we're officially legit," toasted Brandon. "And united," added Jennifer. "And strong," completed David. During the party, as she watched her children playing with their cousins, the grandparents telling stories to the younger kids, and the neighbors chatting animatedly about future projects, Jennifer reflected on the incredible journey they had been on. It had all started with a simple drone flight to check for storm damage. That decision had revealed not just people living on their property, but an entire family she never knew existed. The secrets Michael had kept to protect everyone had ended up being the key to uniting the family in a way he probably never imagined possible. The parents he had lost due to pride had become loving grandparents. The brother he had secretly helped had become a valuable partner. The nephews he didn't know had become older brothers to his own children, and the small water spring he had noted in his diary had become the source of prosperity for the entire extended family. "What are you thinking about?" asked Margaret, approaching with 2 glasses of cold Morgan water. "About how surprising life is," replied Jennifer. "About how sometimes what seems like a problem is actually a blessing in disguise." "Like when we discovered we were living hidden on your property." "Exactly. At first I was terrified. Today I can't imagine our life without you. Nor we without you." "Margaret," Jennifer said after a moment, "can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you regret anything?" "I regret taking so long to make peace with Michael. I regret missing years of my grandchildren's lives, but I don't regret being here now. And if Michael were alive today, I think he would be proud to see how our family has come together. I think he would be happy to know that love was stronger than pride. I think so too." The party continued late into the night. When everyone had finally left and the family gathered to clean up, Jennifer made an announcement. "I have a proposal for you all." "What kind of proposal?" asked Brandon, already accustomed to Jennifer's ideas. "How about we turn part of the property into a country inn, to host families from big cities who want to experience country life?" "Would that work?" asked David, interested. "I think so. We have an interesting story to tell, a family business to showcase, a structure that could be adapted, and with the association, we could create a rural itinerary that includes several properties in the region." "I would love to cook for guests," said Margaret excitedly. "And I could give organic farming classes," added William. "And we could teach visiting kids about sustainability," said Connor. "It's a very good idea," agreed Brandon. "We could start small, with 1 or 2 rooms, and grow gradually." "And the best part," said Jennifer, "is that it would be another way to strengthen our community and our resilience against external pressures." "How so?" asked Logan. "The more our region becomes known as a successful rural tourism destination, the harder it will be for real estate speculators to justify destroying family farms." "Aunt Jennifer," said Brandon with admiration, "you really think of everything." "I don't think alone," she replied, looking at the whole family. "I think with you all." The inn project began to take shape in the following months. William and David worked on renovating 2 rooms in the main house and building an additional bathroom. Margaret planned menus with local products. Brandon created a simple website, and the children helped by decorating the rooms with drawings and crafts. The first guest arrived 6 months later, a family from New York with 2 young children who wanted to spend a weekend living like our grandparents lived. "Welcome to Morgan Farm," said Jennifer, greeting the family on the porch. "What a beautiful place," said the mother, a stressed executive who clearly needed rest. "And what delicious water," said the father, tasting the chilled Morgan water that Margaret had offered. The visiting children were delighted with everything, feeding the chickens, helping in the vegetable garden, playing with Jennifer's children, learning about the spring. The parents completely relaxed, participating in the rural activities and talking with the family members about sustainability and simple living. "This is therapeutic," said the mother on the last day. "You've created something very special." "It was created with love," replied Jennifer. "And with family unity," added Margaret. "We will come back," promised the father. "And we'll recommend it to our friends." And they did come back. And they brought friends. And the friends brought other friends. In a short time, the Morgan Farm Country Inn was receiving bookings 3 months in advance. Other members of the association followed the example and created their own tourism activities. The region became known as an authentic rural tourism destination, attracting people from various cities who wanted a genuine countryside living experience. "We've become a tourist attraction," laughed Nathan, who had become an excellent guide for the visiting children. "We've become an example," corrected Jennifer. "An example of how families can come together, overcome difficulties, and build something good together." It was during one of the association meetings, almost 3 years after the family's initial discovery by the drone, that Dr. Ferdinand brought the final news about Robert Thompson and his company. "Agro development has been fined and is prohibited from operating on family rural properties," he announced. "Robert Thompson has been personally sued for abusive business practices. Does this mean we are completely free from the pressure?" asked Jennifer. "It means you won, completely." The celebration was universal, but Jennifer felt the real victory wasn't about Robert Thompson or his company. The real victory was what they had built, a united family, a thriving business, a strong community. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Jennifer went to the small altar she had set up with a photo of Michael in the living room. "Michael," she whispered, "you wouldn't believe what has happened to our family." She told the photo about the grandchildren he never met, growing up happy and secure, about the parents who had become wonderful grandparents, about the brother who had recovered from alcoholism and become a present father, about the family business that was thriving, about the inn that was bringing joy to other families, about the association that was protecting the rural community. "It all started because I used a drone to see the storm damage," she said, smiling. "And it ended up revealing not damage, but blessings that were hidden." A gentle breeze came through the window, swaying the curtains. Jennifer chose to interpret this as a loving response from Michael, approving everything she had built with his family. "Thank you," she whispered, "for planting the seeds of reconciliation, even when you were hurt, for believing in forgiveness, even when it was hard, for leaving me a family that even you didn't know you could have." The following year, Brandon graduated in business administration and officially took over the management of Morgan Water and the Country Inn. Connor decided to study rural tourism. inspired by the success of the family business. Logan discovered a talent for digital marketing and created a YouTube channel telling the family story and promoting the region's rural tourism. David married the teacher he had met at the support meetings. She moved to the property and became another active member of the family, helping with educational activities for the visiting children. "Now we're officially a big family," Jennifer joked during David's simple wedding, held on the property itself. "And happy," added the new daughter-in-law, whose name was Patricia. "And prosperous," William finished, seeing all the family businesses running well. "And united," Margaret concluded, hugging her grandchildren. Jennifer's children grew up surrounded by love, stability, and positive examples. Nathan became a natural leader, always helping to organize activities and look after his younger cousins. Emily developed artistic talent and began creating the decorations and souvenirs sold at the inn. Tyler became an excellent junior farmer, always inventing more efficient ways to tend the garden. Lily, even though small, already showed signs she would be as determined and caring as her mother. During a family meeting to plan the future, 3.5 years after the initial discovery, Jennifer shared a reflection that touched everyone. "You know what I learned from all this?" she said, looking around the table where all the members of the extended family were gathered. "What, Mom?" asked Nathan. "That sometimes what seems like an invasion is actually an invitation. What seems like a problem is actually a solution. What seems like an end is actually a beginning." "How so?" asked Emily. "When I saw there were people living on our property, I thought it was an invasion, but it was actually an invitation to expand our family. When the problem with Robert Thompson arose, I thought it would destroy us, but it actually made us stronger and more united. When your father left, I thought it was the end of our family, but it was actually the beginning of a much larger and more united family." "And the drone?" asked Tyler. "The drone was just the instrument," Jennifer replied, smiling. "What really made the difference was our willingness to face the unknown, to accept change, to fight for those we love. And to forgive," Margaret added softly. "Especially to forgive," Jennifer agreed. "Mom," said Nathan, always the most thoughtful, "do you think if Dad were here, our family would be different?" Jennifer thought carefully before answering. "I think it would be different, yes, but not necessarily better or worse, just different. Your father was a good person, but he carried resentments that prevented him from having the united family we have today. Sometimes things need to break so they can be rebuilt stronger." "Like a broken bone that gets stronger after it heals?" asked Tyler. "Exactly like a broken bone." "And is our family stronger now?" "Much stronger." On the 5th anniversary of the family's discovery by the drone, they organized a big party on the property. They invited all the association members, all the regular clients of the inn, all the suppliers of Morgan water, and several families from town who had become friends over the years. The party was a huge success. There was music, dancing, typical regional food, presentations on sustainable agriculture, craft workshops, and many stories being told about overcoming challenges and family unity. The highlight of the party was when Jennifer stepped onto a small makeshift stage to speak to all the guests. "Friends," she began, visibly emotional. "5 years ago, I borrowed a drone to check for storm damage on my property." Laughter and applause from the audience, who already knew the story. "I never imagined that small flight would reveal not damage, but blessings. Not problems, but solutions. Not losses, but immeasurable gains. What I discovered that day wasn't just people living on my property. I discovered a family I didn't know I had. I discovered that love is stronger than pride. I discovered that forgiveness heals more than time. I discovered that together we are infinitely stronger than alone." The audience was visibly moved. Some people discreetly wiped away tears. "Today, our property is home to 3 generations of a united family. Our water nourishes not only our family, but dozens of families in the region. Our inn welcomes families from various cities, showing them it's possible to live simply and happily. Our association protects hundreds of rural families from external pressures. But the most important thing," she continued, her voice growing even more emotional, "is that our children are growing up in an environment of love, unity, and hope. They are learning that family isn't just those who share the same blood, but those who share the same values. That land isn't just property, but a heritage that must be preserved for future generations. That business isn't just about profit, but a way to serve the community. The applause was long and warm. When it finally subsided, Jennifer concluded, "That's why I want to dedicate this celebration not only to the anniversary of our family discovery, but to all families who have the courage to open themselves to the new, to forgive the past, and to build a better future together. To all families who discover that love truly is stronger than any difficulty. Anakiu," she said, smiling, "to all the drones that reveal secrets which transform lives." The final laughter and applause were deafening. When Jennifer stepped off the stage, she was hugged by the entire family and many of the guests, all visibly touched by the story and the message. Later that night, after all the guests had left and the family had finished cleaning up, they gathered on the porch of the main house for one last reflection. "Mom," said Brandon, "thank you for accepting our family." "Thank you for giving my dad a chance," added Connor. "Thank you for showing us what a real family is," Logan finished. "Thank you for teaching us that love builds bridges over any chasm," said David, moved. "Thank you for giving us the chance to be the grandparents we always wanted to be," said Margaret. "Thank you for showing us it's never too late to start over," said William. "And thank you," said Patricia, "for welcoming me as a daughter from the very first day." Jennifer looked at all of them, then at her own children, who had fallen asleep in the laps of their grandparents and older cousins. "No," she finally said, "I'm the one who is thankful for you showing me that family has no limits, that love has no expiration date, that second chances can be even better than first chances. And for that drone," added a sleepy Nathan, making everyone laugh. "Especially for that drone," Jennifer agreed. As everyone prepared to go to sleep, Jennifer stayed alone on the porch for a few minutes, looking in the direction of the caretaker's house, now lit up and full of life. She looked toward the spring, which continued to supply pure water for the family business. She looked toward the inn's rooms, where in the future they would welcome more families seeking peace and simplicity. "Thank you, Michael," she whispered to the stars, "for planting the seeds of reconciliation even when you were hurt, for believing in forgiveness even when it was difficult, for leaving me a family that became larger and more united than any of us could have imagined." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees, like a tender response from the past to the present. Jennifer smiled, went inside, and prepared for another night of peaceful sleep, knowing the future was full of possibilities for her large, united, and prosperous family. The next morning she woke up early as always and went to check the vegetable garden. She found Nathan already awake, helping William water the plants. "Good morning, Grandpa," said the boy. "Good morning, Mom." "Good morning, Champ. Did you sleep well?" "I did, and I dreamed that Daddy was here at the party yesterday." "You dreamed?" Jennifer knelt beside her son. "I dreamed he was smiling, seeing our whole family together. And he said he was proud of us." "And what else did he say in the dream?" "That the drone was the best idea you ever had." Jennifer hugged her son, with tears of joy in her eyes. "I think Daddy is right. It really was the best idea I ever had." "Mom?" "Yes?" "Can we use the drone again today, just to see our whole beautiful property from above?" "Of course we can, my love. Of course we can." And so, 5 years after that first discovery that changed everything, Jennifer once again held the controller of the drone borrowed from her neighbor Bradley. This time not to check for damage, but to celebrate everything they had built. As the small device flew over the property, filming the main house full of life, the renovated and inhabited caretaker's house, the crystal-clear spring, the lush vegetable garden, the country inn rooms ready to receive visitors, and the whole family gathered in the backyard waving at the camera, Jennifer reflected on how a simple drone flight had revealed not just a secret, but an entire future full of love, unity, and prosperity. "Mom," shouted Emily from the backyard, "the drone is seeing our whole family together." "Yes, it is, my love," replied Jennifer, smiling. "It is seeing our whole family together." End of story. So, what did you think of this moving story? Do you believe in the power of forgiveness and family unity like Jennifer and her family discovered? Leave in the comments which part moved you the most and tell us if you've ever experienced a situation where an unexpected discovery changed your life for the better. Your opinion is very important to us. Don't forget to leave your like to support more stories like this and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving accounts of overcoming and family. Thank you for your company.